Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning, America. We'd like to welcome you to the show. I'm Chairman Will. And guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? It's Hump Day. And we're going to come to you today in a little bit of an abbreviated portion of the show. We have a previous commitment that we'd like to kind of take advantage of from a local standpoint. Here in our area, we have a stream or a creek that pretty much passes throughout the entire county. And as it turns out, as luck would have it, we have a chemical concern that's decided that they want to discharge certain chemicals into the waterway, killed all the fish, polluted the water, which eventually flows into a river, which eventually flows offshore. So this particular company is coming under scrutiny from various state and local agencies, and we're going to participate in a consortium to make sure that something's really addressed in this area. So we're coming to you in abbreviated version. And when we did the prep for this morning's show, the thoughts came up during our discussion in terms of given the way we live, the things we do, what will we tell future generations? Because as many of you know from a previous cast, I consider these to be changing times for us. The decisions that America makes now will heavily affect our descendants, our children, our grandchildren. So what would we tell our children about things like climate change? And I hesitate to use the phrase global warming because I think from the very beginning, this project of increasing the awareness of climate change, when we attach the global warming moniker or hashtag to it, we somehow opened ourselves up to our cause being hijacked. I mean, those are, I'll say on the other side who think differently from the way that most climate change scientists think, that if it turns out that it's freezing in Detroit, they would reference the fact that there's no such thing as global warming. So they hijack that argument. So climate change is a better description to what is happening today. Excuse me. So what will we tell our children 12 years from today? As we sit here and we watch the glaciers melt and all sorts of things that displays an indication of that things are changing, times are changing. The question is, what do we do about it? But in America, we can't get to what we need to do about it because there's this angst between two sides that's arguing whether or not it is man-made. And if we admit that it's man-made, it will affect a lot of industries, a lot of businesses. In other words, a lot of Yankee dollars. And as we know, when the Yankee dollars become affected, everybody's attention becomes hyper. Because we don't want to do that in America. And I understand. But if the glaciers are melting and the seas are rising, where will that water go? But anyway, we have to admit that it exists. So the question is, what do we do about it? Now, one of my basic pet peeves, another one of those local things and state things that we have the pleasure of being involved in, is our water source. It's one of the few entities or necessities, to be better put, that we are unable to manufacture or replace. But we're so busy with our politics, our race relations, until we're not able to address that issue. Now, one thing I think that should be done, just as a bit of a sidebar coming from the chairman, with water being a resource that we do not manufacture, and if the seas are indeed going to rise, I think there should be more avenues by which, say, desalination plants are built, where we can take ocean water and remove the salt and turn it into drinking water, or water that can be used for crop irrigation. Because water is a source that cannot be replaced. But we're not bothered about that. We're not concerned about climate change. Some of our Republican representatives just kind of sit back and laugh at it. John Cornyn comes to mind. I'm on a particular rant against Senator Connors, however you want to pronounce his name, because I think he's done absolutely nothing for Texas. And in fact, he has increased, along with his friend Moscow Mitch, who's now being called Massacre Mitch. You got all kind of monikers for these guys. He's increased the tension in race relations. And because he's from Texas, and we have a president who's been saying from the day that he came down the escalator, I'm going to build a wall, Mexico's going to pay for it, and we're going to keep those people who are infesting our nation. They're rapists. They bring drugs in. So by doing that, he demonized an entire population of people. So now, with Senator Cornyn being from Texas and having an incident that occurred in one of the cities of his state, and with him being involved in an upcoming election, he's trying to find a way to pacify those members of his coalition, in addition to or while preventing Mexicans and immigrants who are eligible to vote from turning against him and unseating him. So he's walking a delicate balance. Rather than say or admitting that it was a hate crime, he goes to mental health. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been a problem with mental health in America probably since its inception. But not until now, when Republicans need a diversion from guns in America, are they able to speak specifically to mental health. And I'll address that a little bit down into the show. Like I said, this is an abbreviated version. But I had a policeman tell me one day, in one of the largest cities in America, and we were talking about how the mental health laws does not sufficiently cover or address those who are in the grips of a mental health issue. And his answer to me was, there's no law against being crazy. So I was shocked. So each state has all of these different agencies. In other words, say, once we decided not to really adequately address mental health in America, they say we need to do something. So let's give, say for an example, Chairman Will a subcontracted agency to where I deal with a mental health issue. Never bother that it's insufficient, although they are doing as best they can with the funds that they're allotted. But never mind that it's insufficient. It's only brought up when we really don't want to look at or address the issue of guns in America. So over the weekend, there was a shooting by a white nationalist terrorist in El Paso. And there was also a shooting in Dayton, Ohio. And this is not anything new in America. We have these every 3 months. And somehow we become desensitized to it. So nobody says, what should we really do? Can we really drill down to the real reasons why we have these shootings? Now, after 9/11, President Bush and his administration made the decision that terrorism on an international basis should be addressed at the highest level of our Defense Department. But, and by all accounts, did a good job of addressing that. Some may disagree of how he went into Iraq. I'm one of those. Less have a problem, I think, with Afghanistan, because we came to the realization that that's where bin Laden was at the time. But a real focus in America, and that's when Rudy Giuliani was to address international terrorism in America. You know, TSA was created to really look at those individuals that are getting onto planes, boarding. We addressed that. It's a bit of a hassle, I agree, but it was addressed. But no one has really decided to address domestic terrorists. We fooled ourselves that Timothy McVeigh was a one-off. Unabomber was just some sycophant that lived in a basement or something of that nature, stayed off to himself, and plotted all these diabolical bombings. Church bombings of black churches in the South. Just a guy that's kind of upset that morning. Woke up and decided he would either bomb in one instance, or he would shoot people that are worshiping, members of the congregation, right there in that church. No big deal. And then we let it rock along through a whole generation of people, and we kind of decided these were one-offs. But it's becoming evident that there is a cottage industry. I'll say it again. There's a cottage industry built around white supremacy. They have their ways of communicating. Each one wants to outdo each other. But yet our politicians, specifically this administration and those members of the Republican Party, have come up with all kinds of reasons for these shootings. They don't want to talk about the fact that it is the white supremacists, the domestic terrorists, that are really getting to the point to where law enforcement should really start to address from a holistic point of view. This group of, I'll say, white males who feels like that I think maybe my intent is to go out with my AR-15 and I'm going to shoot up. Well, first of all, I'm going to find the area that has real low enforcement levels, a soft target, in other words. And I'm going to go in with my AR-15 and I'm going to throw down. After that happens, go on Twitter, all you see is thoughts and prayers for this city or that city. So tired of seeing that. So tired of hearing it. So what do? The first statement that most people make is that there are too many guns in America. And, as a gun owner, firearms participant, should I say, that's probably a true statement. So if you stop there and address that, my question is, what are you going to do about it? Now, somewhere I read, and I don't know if I still have this up, but somewhere I read that a well-regulated militia and the right for people to bear arms is actually in an amendment. Okay? I don't necessarily agree that there is a need for a well-regulated militia. I mean, we have a police force. We have a sheriff's department. We have the National Guard. We have FBI. We have CIA. We have all sorts of organizations that are, if you want to look at them as militias, being pretty well regulated. And I have to quote that poet, Joe Biden, who says if some people or some segments of America are afraid that they're going to come for my guns, and because of that I buy more guns. If you think the government is coming for your guns, you don't need guns. You need a F-15. So I have to give him credit for that. Because if the federal government really wanted to come for your guns, there wouldn't be a damn thing you could do about it. Other than make sure that you build a country based upon the needs of the people where equality rules, the message is love. And if you build those into your system, then you wouldn't have to worry about the government coming to take your guns. You know what I mean? So let's face it, you're not going to be able to stop them from coming to get your guns if they really wanted to. But a real, I'm going to say, dilemma actually presents itself. Same thing about illegal immigrants. The number's supposed to be 11 million here in America. The actual logistics of deporting those 11 million people is so great until you're not going to do it. And again, if you decided as a person or a senator or a representative that you would vote on outlawing, say, semi-automatic weapons or assault weapons, what are you going to do about that millions of assault weapons that are out there? I think that really is, from a logistical standpoint, as in the 11 million people in terms of their deportation, it's just not going to happen that way. So here's some common sense things that we should agree on. You know, people say, and I know this will be a bit controversial because over 20 people have died in El Paso. And I think, if I'm correct, 9 so far in Dayton, Ohio. So out of respect for that, I have to understand and be empathetic with those people who are hurting, with those people who feel their pains. But to me, a common sense, I'll name one, solution would have to start with universal background checks. And again, it's big business, but maybe not close that gun show loophole, but regulate it to the point to where you just can't go in and buy a gun, you know, at one of these big shows without a universal background check. So you close that loophole. I don't have a problem with that. But say if it comes to the red flag law. Now, many variations, many interpretations of this red flag law. Many interpretations. Some say if you're acting kind of strange, okay, in the neighborhood. I mean, you're one of those kind of guys that has a few too many beers on Saturday night, and then all of a sudden you want to take out your gun and just start shooting up in the air. It's not Christmas. It's not New Year's. It's not the 4th of July. You want to be able to drink, say, a case and indiscriminately fire in the air. So, in order, in my opinion, what you're saying is this person has a mental health concern, okay? This is what John Connor is saying. And I indeed hope I'm pronouncing his name wrong. But this is a mental health problem. But you're just gonna address that problem as it relates to the issue of guns. There's many other types of issues, that mental health makes a contribution to: domestic violence, child abuse, all of those things. So in order to get a true and an accurate, I'm going to say, agreement on red flags, you have to assure me that if I'm acting just, say, a little bit ugly, I'm going to repeat that again. In other words, I didn't drink a case of beer, and I didn't go out and, shoot my semi-automatic weapon in the air. I just got a little loud and I'm disturbing the peace. Okay? Not physically attacking anyone, but I'm just disturbing the peace. Maybe I'm drinking some, one beer, two beers. Now, because of that, would you want your privilege of owning a gun taken away? In other words, it's a misdemeanor, So I wouldn't want the red flag laws abused. What I do want is to have the mental health laws addressed. The facilities increased to where individuals can go and actually get help, as opposed to being ostracized, put away, and lose their privilege to own a gun. So I'm a little skeptical of the red flag war suggestion, whatever you want to call it. But, and I think lastly, because we got to get out of here, some are crying out for a complete and total assault weapons ban. Okay? So I asked that question similar to the argument that says there's too many guns in there. So if you ban assault weapons, what are you going to do about those that already have them? And again, it's so you have to come to something in order to change the hearts and minds first. And that's going to take, and to be real honest, it's going to take love and communication. I'll have to use myself as an example. Okay? We live in a rural area. We have a few acres. And on one side of our home is a field that has no connection to agriculture. It's just an open field. And on the other side of our home, we have farmland that's farmed, say, every other year. Not every year. Now, behind our home, it goes into like a meadow, if you understand what a meadow is. And then it goes straight into what most people would call a forest. Now, at night, there are things in that forest that are bigger than me. Okay? And if I decided I want to sit out on my patio at like 1 a.m. in the morning, I have to realize that there may be something out there that could give me a little trouble. Because, I mean, let's face it, animals they roam and they wander, I'm not saying I'm going to get a bear. I'm not saying I'm going to get a tiger. But I could get a bobcat. I could get a herd of feral hogs. So in my mind, okay, I mean, an AR-15 is not really a bad solution for the area in the areas where I live and the conditions that I live under. It's not a bad idea. And I'm not the only one. Millions of Americans have this same, I'm going to say, challenge. So now the question is, okay, how many rounds do I need in a magazine? Okay? If I have to fire 250 rounds, at this, say, herd of feral hogs, or at this, and I've had neighbors tell me that we do have panthers. Never seen one. We do have bobcats, I know. And if I need 250 rounds for that, then I'm either a poor shot or I'm just shooting indiscriminately at things. Same way the domestic terrorist is doing. So with that, I'm saying, I would rather our politicians discuss limiting the number of rounds that can be held in a clip. I think that's a pretty fair way and a healthy way to start, because I'm not going to deny the fact that there may be some people in America that may need a rifle. I mean, why do you have weapons at all, Chairman? Well, the main reason I have weapons, and this is my main bottom line reason, like I said, it's hump day. I have weapons because the very last thing that I would like to see, the very last thing that would embarrass me totally as a father, as a husband, as a neighbor, is for me to be down on my knees begging for my life. And it's because of that. Because as an individual or the head of a household, you're tasked with the responsibility of protecting your family. And the very last thing that I would want to see is for me to be on my knees begging for me or my family's life. My solution to that will be, maybe I don't need 250 rounds, but I don't know, if I pop off 20 or 25, I should be able to make some adjustments. Either in the case of the panther or the wolf or the herd of feral hogs, I could pop off 20 and, that ought to give me some time to go back into the house, And if someone was trying to harm me or my family, with a decent distance in 20 rounds, I think I could hold off a normal threat. Now, if there's an abnormal threat, no one has a chance. But a normal threat, with a rifle, yeah, I think I could. So basically, we're so busy trying to condemn or eliminate a whole system. In other words, you're calling it the semi-automatic. And there are pistols out there, Glocks and things like that. Nice pistol, by the way. And you want to eliminate all of those. So where do you want to go back to? You want to go back to the revolvers, the 6-shooters, Because to quote another poet, Gil Scott-Heron, back in the day, everybody had a rat-a-tat-tat. It's just the idea of how people, men and women, use the weapons that they had. There were always people that were hunting. There was always someone at the nightclub with a gun. There was always someone with a gun in their car. I mean, but the mentality of ownership of weapons was different. So we contend that trying to get back to the point to where training individuals of the importance and safety concerns as it relates to gun ownership, and making the crackdown on the white supremacist kind of domestic terrorist kind of guy, or any terrorist. He turns out to be black. You know. Now, what I don't understand, I have to admit, this gentleman in El Paso, was it El Paso? Yes, it was El Paso. Killed all those people. And I hesitate to call him a gentleman. He's a white supremacist terrorist. So I don't need to give him any respect. But somehow, he's alive, well, and he's talking. And I can't blame black mothers, black families, black fathers for saying, why does he live when my son gets murdered at a traffic stop? Just how does that happen? So what are we going to tell our children about these times? What are we going to do? Are we going to take these times, make no corrections, but just fight Republicans against Democrats? And this whole political situation is so highly charged that it has separated mothers from daughters, fathers from sons, neighbors from neighbors. And I submit that our president and his going down to these areas after speaking so negatively about the people in, say, El Paso. And I've heard about El Paso, I've known about El Paso, but this week allowed us to get a really, really focused look into that city. Because we're saying people go across the border, they come back, they seem to get along, and we got this entire picture that is totally the opposite of what our president has been portraying. So he's going to go down there today, and I'll be interested to see what type of reception that he gets. It'll be very interesting. But I think he should, those people in that city, in that town, will be able to have the respect needed for the office of the presidency, because we know who he is. But I think El Paso, for today, needs to continue to show the type of example that they've illustrated since that we were allowed to kind of pull back the curtain and peek into. That they'll be able to continue to have that on display today. So we're going to get up. It's about that time. We got to go make this meeting. But we just had these thoughts, and we wanted to come to you and kind of express them a while, and kind of let you know that what we're feeling. So we welcome your comments. We thank you so very, very much for tuning in, because of all the podcasts out there, we're so blessed to have you come in and see us each and every day. So we're going to take the rest of the day, march out, shine a little light on this thing, and we're going to make sure that each and every day we rise by the grace of God and say peace to all mankind. We're out of here. You have a blessed day, and we'll see you tomorrow. This is the Chairman Will, thanking you so very much for being with us. And we're going to move on to our next meeting. The next meeting will be the next podcast, is scheduled for Friday. So we'll be coming back to you right over the week. Am I right? Yes. Nodding his head. We're right. And we appreciate you coming in. We went a little bit over, and I have my director saying cut. We're trying to get out, but we wanted to let you know that peace, love, happiness abound. So if you're confronted with a difficult issue today, take some time and pray the serenity prayer, which specifically says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. My dad used to always say, a man is just as well knowing the things that he cannot do as well as the things he can do. That way he doesn't waste his time. He can be fruitful, go out into the world and multiply. Peace, love to each and every one of you. We're out.